My friend used to have a dog at the time of this story, and this took place back in 2015. One of my friends who had a dog was a Burmese mountain dog, and he was about at least 3 years old. Now, his name was Max, and he was a very sweet dog. The person who owned him happened to be a friend from high school. We'll call her Jessie. Jessie, or Jessica, had Max ever since he graduated from elementary school. He was a rescue dog as a small puppy, so Jessica didn't have any issues with it. She was 17 when this happened, not really graduated. Well, she just turned 17 then. She was 16, but she was 17. Now, I can't honestly remember if it was after high school, after elementary school grad or whatever. We'll just say it was around after that time. Jessie and Max really liked to hang out and do a lot of stuff, and most of the time they would be home alone. However, one day Jessie was left home alone as her dad was going to be on business trip for at least 2 weeks while her mom was doing late night shifts. Now, this was a common thing that Jessica dealt with, but she didn't mind it. She was just watching TV while the dog was guarding the door. However, in a few minutes later, Max started barking at something. Jessica honestly told him to hush down, thinking he must have saw maybe just a wild animal or possibly sensed something was out there when there really wasn't. Now Jessica was confused and thought maybe Max was just barking at something. He barks sometimes when there's cars going down, so it was no big of a surprise. However, though, she was just on her laptop doing some schoolwork. So as she was doing her schoolwork, she all of a sudden looked up. She realized that since school was going to be ending soon, exams would be starting, Max was barking his head off, and this honestly confused her. Why was Max even barking his head off? She looked around, but she didn't see anybody in the house, and she was alone. However, she ended up looking that Max was looking down at what seemed to be the bedroom door. She opened the bedroom door and looked around, and Max started barking in what direction appeared to be the parents' bedroom. Jessica looked around and found her brother's baseball bat that was in her bedroom. She carefully grabbed it and she went over to the bedroom. However, once Jessica got ready, she opened the door, but she found absolutely no one in the house, so she did a thorough sweep. However, though, she had no idea what Max was barking at or anything. Although she talked to her parents and asked if they were home, but they weren't. So, whatever Jessie experienced that day with Max while dog sitting was pretty much completely paranormal. Okay, so this happened back when I was a kid. I was living in my old house at the time. I don't remember how old I was. I must have been really young. Probably a young kid. I don't honestly remember. After my mom's black lab had passed away sometime, my dad's dog was a poodle named Cece. Cece was an older dog, but she was a very kind one. However, it did take her a while to get used to my dad, as she had a bad history with men handling her roughly and that. However, my dad was the exact opposite at the time. With what happened with Cece, she really was a pretty good girl. She always guarded me as a baby, and a bit of my brother too. She was an old dog, yes, but this event happened before she passed away, which was not that long after that. Probably maybe at least a year. However, though, I was a kid at the time, and my parents were just looking after Cece. My dad was at work that day, so my mom was home. She was looking after me and my brother, and including the animals as well. I know it was a big struggle, but she did all she could. However, something really weird happened, and I honestly don't know what to think of it. It was obviously because I was a kid, and I probably just have a bad memory, but I might have been maybe 4 or 5 when that happened. My mom said that she was going to go upstairs as she had to put my baby brother to bed as he was having his nap. I was watching TV and Cece was down there, so there wasn't really an issue. My mom went to go put my brother to bed while I just sat and watched TV. As I was sitting and watching TV, just minding my own business and not paying it too much attention, I started to look up and realized that there was something out in my front yard. Now, I thought that maybe somebody was probably a friend of my parents, but my mom's car was only there and not my dad's car or truck. I honestly can't remember what vehicle my dad had at the time, but it was one or the other. This person looked to be maybe an older man. He looked like he might have been maybe in his 40s. I honestly couldn't really tell what he was wearing or what his facial expression was or anything. He was just far away. He didn't seem to notice me as the blinds were there, but I lifted it just a bit so I could have a peek. I know that it wasn't my dad because I knew my dad was wearing when he left, so there was no way it could be him. Cece was just looking at the window staring and started making growling sounds. I honestly didn't know what to think or why was Cece growling. She's never growled, and when I pet her, I thought she was going to attack me, but she didn't. She just kept staring at the window and then started barking a bit. I tried to hush her as quiet best I can, but to no avail, and whatever this person does started to slowly walk up. I honestly could tell that they were probably wearing a hoodie, but I had no idea if it was this man or woman or whatever was walking up. I honestly couldn't really understand what was going on or what was to become of this, so I honestly didn't know what to do. I made sure the front door was locked, and thankfully it was, so I went upstairs. However, as I went upstairs, I told my mom that someone was out there, and my mom went down there as soon as she put my brother in his crib. But whatever it was already gone, and Cece was still growling and barking. My mom eventually got her to quiet down, so that person didn't come back. However, though, it wasn't until the nighttime when I was getting ready for bed. Well, my parents usually let me stay up a little bit longer on the weekend, and it was Friday. I was watching The Wiggles, one of my favorite shows as a kid. I can't remember what tape it was, but it was one of the older ones. As I was watching, Cece was with me, and of course, my dad was in the kitchen cleaning up and doing the last bit of stuff. All of a sudden, Cece looks outside again, and I saw that this person, whatever it was near my mom's car, and Cece started barking her head off. I ended up going to tell my dad, and he went over there and got her to stop, but saw that there was a man out there. He told me to go to bed and just to go upstairs to my bedroom and play quietly. I obviously did that, and he shut off my VCR. I had no idea what was going on or why he did that, but I pretty much didn't want to know at the time. I stayed in my room for what seemed to be maybe 10 minutes, but eventually my dad came in and told me exactly what happened. He said that this man was wandering around, but of course the cops had arrested him, saying he was a dangerous man. Cece was trying to warn us about this man. Could be the same one that tried to invade my house when my mom was there. It honestly was really painful to hear, but to not understand what was happening. But thankfully, though, I'm glad Cece was the one who alerted me and my dad, along with my mom. Things could have been a lot different if Cece weren't around. Unfortunately, she passed away a year after this incident. Nothing like that has ever happened in my old neighborhood, and we moved at least maybe before I turned 7 at the time. That was when I moved, and I never had anything like this happen again. I still don't know what this man's intention was, and honestly, I could care less. Just hope this guy is rotting in hell. This may be a short story, but this story is told in the perspective of a male. Now, this person who I'm talking about, his name was Andy. Andy was about 25 at the time, and he had moved out with his girlfriend in 2016. They were watching TV in their bedroom when Andy and his girlfriend were about to fall asleep, when all of a sudden their dog started barking. Of course, their dog was a German Shepherd, and he started barking randomly at what seemed to be the door. It was a door that led from their bedroom to the hallway, so Andy decided to tell his girlfriend to stay in the room watching TV while he went to deal with it. However, as his dog, which his name was Marty, went downstairs with him, they ended up discovering something. They ended up seeing that there was broken glass on the window, and when Andy looked in the bedroom, which of course was the guest room, I don't know why, but it was pretty much as big as a living room, you could say. And there was a man dressed up in a hoodie. He looked about 6 feet tall. Now, Andy was 6'5", and he could easily take him out, but this guy looked like he had a large knife. Of course, Andy had his baseball bat, so he carefully snuck up behind him and hit him in the back of the head as hard as he could with the baseball bat, knocking him out. The cops did arrive, and they arrested the man as soon as he regained conscious. He didn't suffer any head injury, but it was later revealed that this person was pretty much messed up mentally and physically, which he had been breaking into people's houses. Andy and his girlfriend got one of their windows replaced, which of course he broke through the guest bedroom window, which was a large window. He somehow had used a rock or something and broke the window, which the next day Andy and his girlfriend got it replaced. Nothing has happened since then, and they still get paranoid, which is why they installed security cameras the next day. Since this has been at least a couple years, probably this took place in 2010. Now, I knew a friend who happened to be at the same age as me at the time, and she had her mother who owned what seemed to be a greenhouse in the countryside. Of course, she owned the greenhouse, and she really enjoyed looking after all the plants, fruits, and veggies, and etc. She often brings her dog wherever she goes with. A couple of times she had to leave her dog home with a babysitter, but she had to stay at the greenhouse because it needed some repairs since there had been a thunderstorm and some of the property was damaged. Thus my friend and his mom had to bring her dog there. It wasn't really a big of an issue though, as she has built greenhouses in the past. So, her dog was about a Rottweiler, and his name was James. James was a pretty smart Rottweiler and always made sure everything was in line. He was pretty obvious that he really enjoyed the place. He made sure everything was safe and to make sure that no one ever tried to harm anyone. Of course, my friend goes to the greenhouse maybe once a week to help out. I know she really wasn't a big plant person, but she loves the environment and really enjoys going out often, especially with her dog. The dog at the time of this story, James, was still a puppy and he had a lot to learn. He was almost a year old when this happened. At the greenhouse, my friend's mom was busy putting up some board when James all of a sudden started barking out in the woods. Of course, their greenhouse was surrounded by forest, so as James was barking, my friend's mom went over and asked him why he was barking. Then she all of a sudden looked at the tree line. She could see that there was something. It honestly didn't even look human. Now she thought that it could have been a mountain lion or possibly a bear, but it didn't look like it was going to attack. It just stared directly at my friend's mom for a minute, while James kept barking at it aggressively. This was pretty weird, as James is normally the sweetest Rottweiler, but when he started barking, that was something really off. Of course, the mom ended up looking to see that it was obviously not a bear, but it honestly looked like something was about 6 feet tall. It honestly looked like it was wearing a hoodie, or maybe some fake fur. She ended up looking to see that whatever this person had seemed to be having an ice pick. Hey, who are you? As soon as she calls out this person, it took off running across the field past the house, and James started barking and chasing it. Of course, when James chased it as far as he could, the man or whoever was gone. My friend's mom ended up calling the cops, and they searched the whole area of the greenhouse, but they couldn't find anyone. So they assumed that it might have been someone trying to sneak their way to either attack anyone or something. It was obviously that they had no idea, but something was really off. But staying with that, my mom's friend had no idea who this man was and why he had an ice pick. This was something really strange. If James had not alerted her, God knows what could have happened to her that day. And my friend's mom, would not have come home that night if she hadn't brought James along.